And it is time for coffee talk. I apologize, I'm a couple of seconds late. Was just throwing the final touches on what should be a very jam-packed edition of Coffee Talk. We're not only going to be talking about our local forecast and Hurricane Lee, but we're actually going to go live to New England. A friend of mine, AJ Burnett, who is a meteorologist at our sister station in Boston, WCVB, we will be chatting with him. He's at the station now doing some work. So we'll check in and just kind of hear what the situation is and what kind of New Englanders are doing to prepare. AJ not only has worked as a meteorologist in Boston, which is where he is now, but he was a Mainer and did all of that stuff. So it'll be interesting to hear. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, let's just take a minute and enjoy this moment of zen. It is stunning. This is our tower cam network over in Tavares, looking out over Lake Dora. The sun shining through those clouds. It is absolutely, absolutely beautiful. Whatever you've got planned this morning, I think you're going to be doing just fine in terms of weather. Let's check in and see what's doing on our first warning live Doppler radar, which this morning is showing some activity off the shoreline. Now, we've still got our radar. You see how the range cuts off a little shorter? We've got the radar in kind of severe weather mode, and we've just kind of been leaving it here. It's much, much better for velocity, but the range comes in just a little bit. So it covers our entire Central Florida area, but you're just not going to see stuff way out there. If I switch over to the Melbourne radar, it kind of gives the better wide perspective. So there are some storms around. Definitely some storms around off the coast of Volusia and Flagler counties. But for now, we are doing just fine. In terms of temperatures this morning, let's look. I mean, it's warm and muggy in the metro, right? 79 in Orlando, 72, though, in Ocala. So that's not too bad. Where do we go from here? Aha, let's take a look and see what's doing, right? We're looking fantastic across the area this morning. But later on through the day, we're going to get some of those thunderstorms firing up, right? Yeah. It's just one of those things. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. Making plans during the summertime, we just kind of have to expect this to play out this way, and that's the way that it is. So it'll be fine. We'll do it. We'll do our thing. And, yeah. As far as a severe weather threat, yesterday we did have some storms, and some of them did get a little feisty. But looking at today, looking at today's severe weather breakdown across Central Florida, it's not looking like it did yesterday. The overall idea is that we will get some storms, but it's not going to be quite as elevated, at least atmospherically. Now, I do think it's funny. Mario's like, we'll be fine. Bam, tornado warnings. I mean, but isn't that just the way that Central Florida works, right? We get those thunderstorms firing up, and it's like every single day, you get that opportunity for the storms. So, at least during the summer months. Yeah. Let's take a look at Futurecast. And our rapid update Futurecast model, I think, has been doing the best with things. So here's 9, 10, 11. We're good this morning. Notice by about 1 o'clock, we'll start to popcorn up some showers, right? Then by 2:30, 3 o'clock, a little bit of rain out east of town. And then through the metro, watching those storms around 6, 7, and then out west around 8 or so. So it's not going to be an overly active forecast. I think the coverage is going to be down just a little bit, but there is going to definitely be some thunderstorms around. So such is life. Pat, good morning to you. Hope you're doing well. Melissa says Daytona Beach needs some rain. It's so dry here. Well, and that was kind of one of those things that I was going to talk about, is how we've seen plenty of rain in spots here recently, but believe it or not, Daytona Beach is not even close to being the driest of the places. Here's a look at the rainfall numbers to date. Orlando just slightly in a deficit. Really not doing that badly. Sanford and Leesburg, my friends, y'all need some rainfall. Seriously, you do. So, hopefully we'll get some. In terms of today's coverage, In terms of today's coverage, it's going to kind of be inland areas and off to the west. Judy says, OMG, a real weather forecast. Thank you, Eric. This is great. As long as you like it, I did it for you. All right, let's talk about today's rain coverage. Today's rain coverage. There you go. So a little lower than it was, but it is what it is. Hold our beer. Yeah, exactly. Patty says our AC went out last night around 6. Oh, at least we're not like straight up midsummer's heat. It's not much better, but at least it's not, yeah. Cindy's asking, when will the humidity back off? So let's look at the surface map here and kind of get an idea of what we're chatting, okay? So there's a little front north of us, okay? That little front is going to sneak down, kind of fade a little bit, and really, you know, it doesn't even show on this map, but if we're looking at kind of the overall weather scenario, what we end up with is Friday into Saturday, there is a subtle front. And that front is going to help us out. Here's kind of the overall setup, all right? Here's a better way to do it. This is our hand-drawn weather maps, and this is why hand-drawing, don't ever tell Manalfi I'll agree to this. Don't ever tell Manalfi. But this is why hand-drawing weather maps is not the worst idea. But Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we end up watching this weak little front, particularly during the day on Friday. This weak little front sneaks in. And what it does is it helps to raise our rain chances on Friday, but then Saturday, Sunday, it's not as significant as it was in the models, but it's still there. We're going to get a subtle drop in the humidity. From dew point temperatures in the mid-70s to dew point temperatures in the lower 70s. So think about like what we had last weekend, and that's kind of what it'll do. So from steamy on the muggy meter to humid. It's not comfy, but it's something. Think about it though. You know, we're in mid-September. It's usually like October that we really start to get that that zippity-doo-dah of fall. So it's not normally here yet, but a little subtlety would go a long way, right? I mean, I'll take it. And looking at the temperatures over the next couple of days, it's not full on fall, but it's going to give you a hint, right? Like Saturday, 89 degrees, a high temperature. And by the way, speaking of Saturday, like, we do have a little bit of UCF football. I'm just saying, I'm going to love this forecast. Tailgating may have a couple of storms, but looking ahead to kickoff. And if anybody's going to this game, by the way, you may know somebody that does the weather for these games. Just saying. You might. If you're at the game, you just might. I don't know. Love it when a little chill comes in the air. This is not a chill. This is not a chill, but it's gonna hint. It's gonna hint. Just a hint. Just a hint. Michael, Orlando City soccer game on Saturday evening. I'll have to. We don't have the forecast built for it, but I'll put one together for you. All right. Jamie Lopez over on YouTube says, good morning, I like your shirt. Thank you, buddy. If you know, you know. Diane says, love this shirt. If you know, you know. We'll just say that, right? All right. So that's kind of where we're at locally. Any questions? Otherwise, I suppose we can look at the 7-day forecast and start chatting tropics, right? So here's a look, Central Florida's certified most accurate 7-day forecast. And there you go. We've got the thunderstorms each day. The temperatures come down a skosh, just a tiny bit. Yeah, those morning lows are not going to be doing much. So it's a subtle thing. Yeah, but at least it's something. And then, storms each and every day. Melanie's asking, Melanie Hart. I always talk about Melanie Hart. So y'all know I do graphics for our entire company. And y'all know I have a love and a nerddom for graphics. It started with Melanie. Did I say Holt? Hart. Melanie Holt is another former colleague. Oh my God, my brain. I need coffee. Melanie Hart. It's thanks to Melanie Hart that I got my nerddom into graphics. Okay, so I've got you covered. So Melanie's asking about a Boston forecast. Now, as I mentioned off the top of the broadcast, we're going to have a meteorologist joining us from Boston. But for my FSU friends, this does not look like a great one. Like at all, especially given some of the more recent forecasting models. Saturday for Boston College, cloudy, rainy, probably going to get into some tropical type conditions. So, Melanie, I don't think it's going to be a great forecast. All right, let's talk. Perfect caveat to talk about the tropics, okay? Hurricane Lee, I've had the data on the bottom left corner of your screen. There's the 8 a.m. intermediate advisory. Winds are at 115 miles an hour, moving to the northwest at 6. It is beginning that turn. Katie says, I wouldn't be surprised if they cancel that one. I agree. Listen, I'm a huge fan of Coach, and I personally would love to watch that game. I'm as the years go. Listen, I'm a UCF guy through and through, but Coach Norval's definitely won me over. So I hope they don't cancel it, but if they do, at the very least, hopefully they just reschedule it. That's where I'm at. So anyway, here's a look at the forecast cone from Hurricane Lee. All right, so it's a major hurricane. As it lifts to the north, though, it should start to weaken a little bit into the cooler waters, of course, of the North Atlantic. But the question, there's a couple of different questions. First question is, like, when does it make that transition to an extratropical type thing? And of course, when we talk about that, think of Sandy. Like when Sandy was making landfall, it was making that transition from tropical to extratropical. The good news is the Hurricane Center will continue to make advisories. Like we have learned our lesson from that. But nevertheless, I'm concerned just looking at the map here, right? Like first off, I'm concerned people are like, oh, it goes from a category 1 hurricane to an L, no big deal. It's still going to be a big deal, right? We're still talking about 60 mile per hour winds around either coastal Maine or a little to the left or a little to the right. But, combine that with, depending on when it comes in with the tide cycling that happens around the Bay of Fundy. I mean, there's a lot of elements here. I think at the very least, our friends up there are going to have a very big rain event and a very big wind event because of the size and scope of Hurricane Lee's wind field. So that may prove to be concerning when it comes to the college football game for Boston College and FSU. And then, of course, just people, just people that live up there that don't get this kind of stuff all the time. So because this is kind of a unique little weather event, I want to take a minute and I want to welcome my friend, AJ Burnett. AJ works at our
Sure.
I don't know why I didn't have that set up. Oh, it's because you're my first guest since I redid all of my scenes. I'm like, my audio is not working great. Okay.
I love what you've done with the place, by the way. It looks very nice.
Thank you, buddy. Full 1920 by 1080.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, so AJ Burnett is a meteorologist at our sister station, WCVB in Boston. AJ, talk to me a little bit about kind of with a tropical system moving into New England. It doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. What are people up there kind of thinking right now?
So you brought up a really good point, Eric, that, when this goes from a category 3, which we've been covering now for days, down to a category 1, I think people, in general, not just New Englanders, kind of let the guard down a little bit. All right, it's a 1, it's not going to be so bad. And then when that 1 becomes an L, okay, it's not going to be so bad. Thing of it is, up here, our tropical systems are very different than what you all have down in Florida. They move a lot faster. They have a windy side and a rainy side, and they are becoming kind of a hybrid at this point. They're becoming a different beast. It's not like that, real concentric, with an eye and an eye wall. They almost become kind of like a tropical flavor of a nor'easter up here. And for those that aren't familiar with that term, a nor'easter is a storm that blows up off the Atlantic seaboard and brings winds from the northeast, ergo nor'easter, that can, during fall, winter, spring months, bring winds of 80, 90 miles an hour up this way.
Right.
So the track has us on what would be considered usually the rainy side of the storm. The windy side would be to the right of the center of circulation. The rainy side would be to the left. And with the setup as it is right now, it looks like we would be on that rainy side, but still have the potential to get some strong winds in here. The other thing, Eric, that happens with these tropical systems when they come up this way, the wind field expands.
Exactly.
Right. It may not be that we get into that, 80, 90 mile per hour hurricane force winds, but the tropical storm force winds can blow up to, 200, 250 miles from the center of the circulation, which easily puts Cape Cod and Boston into that kind of area where we might be dealing with those tropical storm force gusts.
Right. So already you've got a situation where there's a system moving in that could be particularly impactful. And again, a jog to the left or the right would change the dynamics. But you guys have already had some significant weather over the last couple of days even. Talk a little bit about that if you don't mind.
Yeah, so we've been in a super tropical air mass with a front nearby that has just been the focus for days and days and days of heavy rain events. Now, have they impacted the same cities over and over? No, but they've been darn close. And just on Monday night, the city of Leominster in Massachusetts, it's if you're looking for it on a map, it looks like Leominster. It's about, I guess as the crow flies, 20, 25 miles northwest of Boston.
Right.
Leominster picked up in the span of about 4 hours as much as 9 inches of rain.
Wow.
And that, where we're hilly around here, where we have a lot of winding creeks, that's way too much rain to handle. And so some of the scenes, I was up in our chopper yesterday, are amazing. I mean, we have roads that have been washed away.
Yeah.
We've had yards that have either washed away or in one case, there's a commuter rail that runs between Fitchburg, Massachusetts, which is very close to Leominster. It's a neighboring town, and right into Boston. There's a part of the tracks where it's just tracks.
Oh, wow.
And there's nothing underneath them. The entire bed of land rinsed away.
Wow.
And ended up down in somebody's front yard, submerging a car in the mud and the rocks, and also taking out another car. So we had flooding from what's not even a tropical system. Right. And that's been kind of the mantra of this summer. We've had these flooding events. North Andover had national headlines too. And what you're looking at now, thank you for bringing that up, Eric, is the rainfall that we're expecting from today's rain. All right. So we have another front that's coming through. This will finally bring an end to the humidity. It's been really humid up here by New England standards when you're dealing with dew points up near 70 degrees in September. That's hard to take any time of year for us, right? I want to be respectful for your audience because 70 degrees is a walk in the park for you guys, right?
But New England's totally different.
Yeah, exactly. And so this will bring an end to the humidity. But we're also talking about, and if you look carefully on that image, there's a little locator just to the north of Worcester there. That's the city of Leominster.
Yeah.
I wanted to highlight that because we're anticipating another 1 to 2 inches of rainfall widespread across the area, but where it's convective, where it's, coming through with a front that's separating two very different air masses, we could end up with spots that pick up 3-4 inches of rain. If that happens in any one spot, that's going to be a problem. If it happens in Leominster, that's going to be a completely different beast that I don't even want to really think about.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like for us in Florida, we can handle that sort of rainfall. There was a morning I remember I don't know, a few months ago where we got like 11 inches of rain in one spot in like a few hours. And then there was some flooding, but it was nothing like what 11 inches or 9 inches would do in your area for sure.
Right. So the other thing I mentioned this is the fact that Leominster is hilly, right? So in between, you're talking about 9 inches of rain in the hills that has to come
Yep.
down the
Yep.
hill and end up somewhere.
Yeah.
And that was the recipe for, the governor of Massachusetts was just there touring yesterday. They've issued a state of emergency. Schools are closed again today. They closed school yesterday. They
Wow.
closed school again today because there are so many roads that are impassable or aren't there
Right.
anymore. And my concern now is, we obviously see the sinkholes that are around. I mean,
Sure.
I just mentioned 1-2 spots. I mean, there are at least 10 sinkholes in the city of Leominster alone.
Wow.
I'm guessing here. What can't we see? Right.
Yeah.
So the road may still be there. I just wonder about the underlayment, the road bed. What's the condition of that? Are we going to have to go in with some sort of, I don't know, sonar or something and kind of detect if there are weak spots? I just don't know.
Yeah.
And so a rain event like today from a non-tropical system, I mean, this is before we even get to Lee.
Exactly.
Is concerning.
Okay, so you had talked a little bit about that. Let's go to the rainfall forecast that you guys have. This is with Lee. And talk a little bit about that if you don't mind.
So this is just from Lee, and if you look there, I've highlighted Leominster again. Thankfully, the rainfall from this won't be nearly as bad for areas like Leominster and out through Worcester, and that squiggly line that you see going right up north of Worcester, that's Route 2. That can be a line of delineation around here, especially when we talk about winter weather.
Right.
It seems to be almost a natural rain, snow, or ice line. Route 2 can be, but we're not there yet. We have a ways to go before we get there. What's probably standing out, Eric, is the red color over Cape Cod.
Absolutely.
Hyannis, the South Shore, south of Boston.
Yep. Where
Where we could pick up as much as 3 to 4, 5 inches of rain.
Wow.
I mentioned, this is kind of the rainy side of the system.
Yep.
Now, look, Eric, here's the good thing, right? This system, when it comes through, I mentioned they come through fast.
Yeah.
So it would start Friday night, I don't know, throwing out a time, 9, 10 o'clock or
Right.
so, and be mostly done and out of here by 5, 6 o'clock in
Yeah.
the morning. And it's a real abrupt change. Like all of a sudden the winds drop off, the rain is over, and the sun may come out behind this.
Right.
It's not going to be an all-day thing. It's going to be a window of about maybe 6 to 7 hours, and then it's fine after that. So there you go, the Boston College game there.
Yeah. So what? Well, I was going to ask you. Yeah. So you could see. So like, what are your thoughts on being able to get that thing played?
I think they're going to be fine. Look, you know what? BC Eagles play in all kinds of weather up here. Wind, rain. That's the thing I love about football is that they don't call it off unless there's like lightning or a foot of snow.
Yeah.
Right? Football players are football players. They're going to play. It doesn't matter. The worse the weather, the bigger the heart in these sorts of games.
Yeah.
So I don't think that they'll have any problem unless there's some damage from this.
Sure.
And I don't see a whole lot of widespread damage happening in the Boston area. I think our wind gusts may get up to, 30, 40 miles per hour, perhaps. Yeah. So I think they'll get that game in.
Now, let me ask you, you've also worked in Maine, so you're very familiar with kind of the terrain there. So tell me, if you don't mind, just kind of like, overall, being a New Englander through and through, what's your bigger concern if this were to kind of jog a little bit more to the west, which is what some of the more recent computer models have kind of been showing?
Right. And interestingly enough, Eric, it's the Euro model that I know you get into kind of the weeds on some of the different models. So your audience knows Euro from GFS. The Euro model was the one model that had the left-hand turn with Hurricane Sandy. None of the other models had that. And the Euro has also been hinting at this left jog, not a left-hand turn,
right,
but a left-hand jog for a couple of days now.
Yeah.
And I kind of hopped on board that bandwagon and said, hey, let's not discount this just yet. And that's kind of what's going on here.
Yeah, I'm gonna dial that up. It's so interesting, AJ, and when we were tracking the storm kind of, before we knew that this was going to curve away from Florida, I was like, on social media, and I just laugh being ridiculed by even academia meteorologists. They're like, the trough is and I'm like, y'all, until we get some consistency in runs, let's not discount anything.
Yeah, can't do that. Yeah. So go ahead. Sorry, Eric.
No, I was just saying, and it's like, okay, great for us in Florida, like that's not a problem. We're not under threat. But like, looking at you guys, so this is the 0Z European model run, and it's like, it's a little more of a left curve there.
It is, and it's got, so you're looking at wind gusts there, and if you follow the key there, that's bringing 80 mile per hour wind gusts to parts of Cape Cod.
Right.
Am I buying that? I'm not discounting it, but I'm not putting all my eggs in that basket at this point.
Yeah.
A left-hand turn would bring, more of the, core of this closer to Cape Cod. The thing is, Eric, when these things start to change and become less tropical and more extratropical or mid-latitude cyclones, like I say, that wind field expands, and, we don't typically see 90 mile per hour winds, around the center of circulation like that.
Right.
So it's kind of a red flag to me. I think it's a little overdone.
Yep.
I don't want to discount it. The thing that we as meteorologists have to do, and Eric, you'll completely subscribe to this, at least I think, is that, I think we all try to prepare for the worst, hope for the best, right? But as meteorologists, what we have to do is we kind of have to say, look, here are all the scenarios. Here's what we're certain about, and here's what we're not certain about. And we want to be honest with you about what we're not certain about. And that left-hand jog, and how the models are handling that, and how they're handling the wind field surrounding this, is just something that we're just not sure about. So we want folks to prepare for, look, not a landfalling hurricane, like Hurricane Bob back in 1991, which I was on Cape Cod for that. That's where my home was Cape Cod, and we lost 19 trees in our yard from that.
Wow.
It's not going to be a Hurricane Bob, but it's a close call, and it's something that, kind of should remind us, look, Bob was the last real landfalling hurricane for Rhode Island, Massachusetts. It's been a long time since then. This is a reminder that we do stick out in the ocean, and we can get these.
Yeah.
So, we're just trying to prepare folks for, again, what we think is most probable, and kind of a worst case and a best case scenario.
Yeah, I love that. This is why I adore AJ. And for those of you that you probably don't know, I know I've talked about you on Coffee Talk, but
I hope it's been good.
AJ is a graphics whiz like I am. He is. I have leaned on AJ when we were working on this graphics package. AJ came down to Orlando and helped me out. AJ is a mensch, and if I was in Boston for any longer to actually make it to the WSI conference, we would have been sharing meals and breaking bread together and all that. But anyway, I love this man. So I love that we're very much in line. I think of it like we're not like a doctor in a hospital, but I think that the methodology of what we do is very similar. We're looking at information. We're trying to be transparent and explaining what could, what couldn't, what we know, what we don't, and leaving it up to our client, our viewers to make their decisions. But we try to give the best information, and AJ is so good at that too. So
thank you.
Everybody, by the way, in the room, I know you can't see the comments, but everybody's talking about how wonderful of a communicator you are, which this is absolutely correct.
Thank you.
They're complimenting you on your facial hair, and I happen to love it as well.
This is a new addition back from late April, early May.
I like it.
And I've been kind of keeping it, high and tight, I guess.
Does anybody have any questions for AJ before we let him go, as his signal's kind of coming in and out there? No, it's okay. It's what it is that I think your bandwidth is just inconsistent, and so it's.
Well, I'm going to have a talk with our IT group, because I'm here in the station plugged into a hub. So.
Oh, that's even funnier. Okay. Well, either way, listen. Either way, it's working-ish.
Ish. There you go. Ish is better
Ish.
than it's not.
Correct. So that's fine with me. I did pull this up though, AJ. I figured it'd be a kind of an interesting thing to look at.
Yep.
You know, this and give me 2 seconds to doctor it up just so that I can measure this. But this is the wind field currently around Lee. And you know, another point. So AJ, you were discussing how as these systems start to kind of make that transition, their wind field grows. And just by measuring, you know, you're talking about tropical storm force winds running almost 500 miles, you know, over 400 miles. So it's already a very broad wind field. And so as that opens up even more, I think it's going to be an interesting case study in how, truthfully, each storm is measured differently. And so, you know, this could be a broader impact, even if it isn't a Hurricane Bob or something to that effect.
Now, Eric, if we can you can actually advance that through time, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
so what I want our audience to see here is, you see how there's the red color that surrounds the three. Watch as that shrinks, but the yellow expands, right? So if we kind of, can you go a little further? Does it go further in time?
I think, well, the
Or maybe
graphic
that's
doesn't,
it.
but let me do a little.
Well, let's do a
That's
comparison, right? Let's do a diameter comparison there, which you just
Yep.
did was 425-ish miles. There we go with the ish again, right?
So custom. I'm gonna just do plus 5 days. I don't remember how far out this
It
product
might
goes,
not
but it
go.
will.
I seem to remember it's truncated, maybe, but
Yeah.
we'll
Give me
we'll
2 seconds.
try it.
If anybody on the planet understands making sausage, it's AJ Burnett, the sausage king of New England. All right.
All right.
So
So
I've got
yeah,
it running
there's
through
the red.
5
It's
days.
clearly, yeah. See, the red is like gone away. All right. So
Yep. So let me run it in my show so that I can do that measuring tool.
Yep.
Give me 2 seconds. And we'll just go to the last frame. So the last point that the Hurricane Center issues that.
right. Okay. So now I'll bet you if we take a diameter measurement there, it's, yeah. See, it's much wider. So
Much
the
wider.
winds aren't as intense, but more area would be susceptible to tropical storm force winds, which is exactly what we kind of said off the top here. So the wind field is expanding, but we're not getting that real core of real intense winds like you all would have, in a landfalling hurricane in Florida.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple of questions. Mickey on YouTube, are they concerned about storm surge and tornadoes in New England?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We're more concerned with tornadoes actually today than we are with anything from Lee. So today, with the frontal boundary coming through, there are some ingredients here. Eric, do you talk in your coffee talk? Do you talk about cape and shear at all?
We have, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
So CAPE, it was confusing to me as an entry-level meteorologist. CAPE, I'm from Cape Cod, right? Well, convective available potential energy, right? So think of this as like the energy available to thunderstorms, right? The higher the energy, the more intense the storms can be. Now, that's just one factor, right? There are a number of other players in the atmosphere. You could have a lot of CAPE and not get storms because there's too much inhibition aloft, right? So I know we're getting into the weeds here.
Yeah.
What we talk about is a low CAPE, in other words, low energy but high shear environment. And shear is just a change in wind speed and or direction with height. And what we tend to do around here is we get that real high shear in the lowest levels of the atmosphere, and it causes these very quick spin-ups. They come down, they go up, and sometimes that can happen in the span of one radar scan.
Yep.
And they're really hard to find on radar. Radar's gotten better lately, with the advent of dual pol. So we're able to detect them a lot better than we could, say, 20 years ago. But they still happen very quickly. That's the environment that we're in today. I don't see that sort of environment playing out when Lee passes by. I see it as being a shield of some heavy rain and squalls, not necessarily ones that produce tornadoes. So it's kind of strange. We're preparing our audience for severe weather potential today, along with more flooding rain. At the same time, we're preparing them for Lee, which is going to be a very different thing, affecting a very different part of our viewing area in a very different way.
Yeah.
And that alone, I mean, think of, I'm trying to process how to best message all this to our viewers. If I'm having a little bit of,
Yep.
pause in how best to do that, I know it's going to be confusing for our viewers too. And
Yeah.
so it's what we're trying to message at this point.
Well, and I think that goes with with the struggles of our business, right? That's the fight we always have to fight.
Right.
Cindy's asking, AJ, you showed the graphic for rainfall. How inland are you predicting the wind to stretch? So I guess there's that third graphic you sent me, right?
Right. Yeah. So there's and there you go. Oh, see, graphics whiz, right?
Ha!
There's me, and then there's Eric, who's like on an echelon way above
Oh,
where
get
I'll
out of
ever
here,
be.
kid.
So these are just a couple of graphics that we're showing on the air that I threw down Eric's way, and I sent a late audible down to him, and he still managed to get it on for us. So 60 plus mile per hour winds seem very plausible for Cape Cod. And what we call, so there's the canal. If you've ever been to Cape Cod, you go over one of two bridges. Actually, there are three. One's a railroad bridge. You go over one of two bridges and you sit in a lot of traffic. That is the canal. You're not on Cape Cod until you've gone over the canal. Right? Some people say, "Yeah, I'm down the Cape. Where are you at?" Wareham. You're not on the Cape. I'm a Cape snob. Southern Plymouth County, that's that fuchsia color there, the pink color. We think that there may be 60 mile per hour wind gusts, not sustained, but gusts are possible. And those happen more frequently when you get the bands of rain that are coming through. And I think the winds are going to drop off pretty steadily the farther inland you go. So you notice we've got Boston right on the cusp of that 40 to 60 mile per hour zone before it drops to up to 40 miles per hour. That would be like Metro West. Interior areas out as far as Worcester, and then the winds will drop off considerably the farther west you go. So it's really the coast that I'd be most concerned about.
Yeah.
Luckily, Eric, right now our tides are not running astronomically high.
Yep.
That can be a difference of, as much as 4 feet from one part of the month to another. There can be that big a difference. We're not going to be seeing the astronomically fueled tides. So it's all a question now of, can this come through at the moment or period of highest tide?
Right.
In which case, there could be some coastal flooding, but I don't think it'll be a storm surge of the magnitude, certainly, that, what you see in Florida. Other thing we have going for us is that there's elevation here. In Florida, you're the storm surge can kind of keep going for a while because y'all are flat down there for the most part. Here at least we've got hills, so it's really truly the coast that would have that storm surge. That said, Boston is on the coast,
right?
And most of our population, a lot of our population, I shouldn't say most, a lot of our population is on the coast.
Yeah. It'll be very interesting to follow, and I am so grateful for your time. Maybe depending on how it goes the next couple of days, we could have you back and check back in if you don't mind.
Sure. Anytime. I'm happy to talk to you, Eric. Online, offline. Eric's a good buddy of mine, and you guys down in Florida are awfully lucky to have somebody like him who's thinking of you all the time and doing sorts of things like this. You have my praise, my friend.
Thank you. Hey, sidebar real fast before I let you go. I'm shooting, not that you need it, but I'm shooting a tracking Lee logo up to MTW. So if you want it, I can send it your way as well for whatever reason. They asked for it for the 7-day.
Yeah, love it.
Okay. All right. Very cool. All right. AJ, thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. Go do weather things. Thank you, buddy.
All right. Take care.
You as well. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, that's AJ Burnett, everybody, up at WCVB News Center 5 in Boston, talking about things. We'll check back in with him and perhaps even check in as well with a meteorologist from our Portland, Maine sister station as well. But either way, it's going to be some inclement weather. We'll be tracking it, all right? In the meantime, for us, we've got our afternoon thunderstorms today, 50-50 shot of seeing some of those storms, and I will see you for our 3:30 afternoon coffee talk. We'll chat all about it. Joshua Conti, thank you, buddy. All right, listen, be the sunshine in someone else's day. Thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you to AJ for joining us as well, and I'll see y'all at 3:30 for another update. Bye, y'all.